Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Well, welcome to this segment. In this segment, we'll be looking at how we could get data into Power BI. So it is important for us to know our objectives for today's segment. One thing we want to do now is to get data from various sources. How possible is that? And secondly, we want to resolve data errors in this training. Now, exactly what are they? What do we understand by data? We also need to know that it is through data collection that business or organizations are able to make informed decisions, for further analysis. Without data collections, companies and businesses, will stumble around in the dark without using outdated methods to make their decisions. So in these sections, we'll connect with various data sources, and we'll do off. So we'll also use the Power BI to make sense, bring sense from the data that we have actually collected. Also, we'll be looking at some terms that we will use during this training. Data, exactly what are data? These are raw facts, statistics that have been collected, together for reference and for analysis. So data exists everywhere. People collect data, but most times they're unable to make reference or do great analysis with the data they have collected. So if you have collected your data and it exists in an electronic mode, it means you have collected, probably your data is sitting in your local computer, or it's stored in somewhere. We want to see today how to connect those data to Power BI and make sense out of it. We'll also look at exactly what is Power BI. Power BI is a Microsoft Business Intelligence tool, which is used for processing, for reporting, and for analyzing data. We'll look at Power Query. On the Power Query is a channel, is a channel, a transformation tool. I usually call it the kitchen of Power BI. It's where you do a lot of transformation, a lot of connecting your data from different places, and you clean up those data so that you are able to work with them. Now, as for the beginners, you need to know what a data source is. Your data source is where your data set comes from. So there are various data sources. So your data source is where your data comes from. Then next we'll look at visualization, which is the presentation of your data in various graphical forms, from graphs to tables and to maps to values and etc. The first thing you need to do is to get Power BI desktop. You should get Power BI desktop sitting on your local computer. And that you could do by going to online to get the Power BI desktop. So you go to powerbi.microsoft.com and you click on products and you see Power BI desktop, and you download it to your local computer. I usually prefer to go to the Microsoft store to download it. The great thing about this that is when you do this, it affords you the opportunity, because when Microsoft creates an update, which usually comes, so it quickly updates itself on your local computer. So it actually is safe and it's free for all you to go to the Microsoft store and to download your Microsoft desktop. When you have downloaded your Microsoft desktop, you will have this popping up showing on your system. That's on your computer. So when you have this, that shows you that you have Microsoft desktop on your computer and you are ready to. But before we get our hands dirty and start working, we need to understand there are processes for the processes of how Power BI work. The first thing is for you to get your data. So you connect to a data source. When you have connected to your data source, the next thing is you clean up your data. And that's actually the Power Query we spoke about, that it's a transformational tool where that is used to connect, to transform, to combine, to actually shape your data into what you want. Then when you have cleaned up your data, then you import your data, and you'll be able to create a report from there. And if possible you want to publish it, then you do publish and share with your colleagues or your organization. But there are actually problems when we get data. So we should be careful. We should look out for this. And there are more than this, but I've actually itemized like 5 or 6 problems you could get when you connect with data. One of the problems is, you have to check your the data you have, if they have headers. You don't want a data without a head. So the column, you have to actually look at the column and ensure that the nomenclature is what you want. Check for headers as data. Sometimes you have rows duplicated in your data. You don't really want that, duplicate rows. So just bring in duplicate rows into your data set, so it's just occupying space, and you don't want to do that. So you have empty rows, and the most importantly, you have to check for your data type. Your data type, we have whole numbers, we have decimals, we have text, we have dates. Once you plug in your data, Power BI has the capacity to detect the data type. So if you have entered it wrongly, and you just need to go back and check and correct it, so that you'll be able to do a good report. And the ideal or the professional thing to do is that when you load data, or when you connect to a data source, it is the best practice for you to transform your data. Your transformation is you are trying to take a second look at that data. Is it exactly what I want, before you bring it in for your report? So we'll quickly go to get a data. So when you go to your get data window, you will see this window will pop up. This is the graphical interface to connect to a data. So I'm just going to go to my Power BI. Please, I confirm you could see my screen.
We're still seeing the slides at the moment, Gloria.
Okay.
Now we're seeing Power BI. Perfect. We're seeing Power BI. We're seeing the splash screen.
Okay, great. So when you go to your Power BI desktop, I've been downloaded it on your system. So you have this. So we want to get data. So you can either get data from here or at the back here. So if I click here, you would have or I could also come here and click Get Data. So you will see the various data sources that exist. Okay, so I'll quickly, so when you connect to a data source, I've explained this. So when you connect to a data, so you click this Get Data, and it will show on your screen. Now, Power BI have classified or categorized data into 6. We have flat files, we have database, Power Platform, we have online services, and we have others. So when you look at flat files, it has some files under the name. So you have to look at what exactly are flat files, and database. So your flat file is your Excel file, your text CSV, your XML, your JSON, your PDF as flat files. We have the database, your SQL server, your Postgre, your data.
Gloria, we're losing you from time to time, so it might be best sometimes just repeating a bit.
Okay.
That's okay. No, I'll tell you
time.
again if we do lose you. We lost you for 10 seconds or so.
Okay, so I'll go back to the flat files.
Yes.
Power BI, the categories of various data. So we have flat files, which consist of Excel, text CSV, XML, JSON, and PDF, and some other SharePoint folder. So on the database, we have Access, we have your SQL, your Postgre, your IBM database, Power BI that classify them. So on the Power Platform, we have the Power BI data sets, common data services, and Power Platform. So you will also have Azure, your SQL, your Cosmos DB, your data, Azure Databricks. And on online service, we have SharePoint online lists, your Dynamics 365, Google Analytics. The list is just endless, when we get there. So we could also get our data from web, from SharePoint lists and the Microsoft Exchange. We would, right now, the first thing I would want to go get the data from a web. So I would go to my Power BI. I hope we could see. Yeah.
Yes, we can see. That's great. We're hearing you well now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Mark. So I want to get the data from the web. So you just come, let me take that back again. You go to Get Data. So you can click on More if you don't, and look for the source. So I want to get from the web, and is on Others. So you click on Web and you hit the Connect button. Now Power BI is going to ask you a question. All Power BI needs is for you to give the URL for the where that data is, and Power BI will fetch the data for you. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. So that's my URL, and I'll hit the OK button. So it's making a connection with it, and in a few seconds, my data will be up. So when you have clicked the OK button, when you have connected, so the navigator pane will open on your system. So what this does is that actually shows you the list of tables or sheets that are in that connection that you have made. So it is important. Remember, I said the best practice is for you to transform your data. Take a second look at the data that you're bringing in. So I want to, first of all, let's check. Okay, this just have the title. So no, I'll check for this. So it gives you a preview of what your data is like. So once you have done this, ensure that what you want to bring in is the data that you want. So I want to bring in table 2. So this is my table 2. So I'll click on the transform button. Yeah. So this is moving. So because if I get all the data, I might also have tables. So I don't want to have duplication of tables. I have table 2, 1, and all that. So I've renamed it movie. So look at this place when you and your Power Query. This pane is called a query. On this side, you have the query setting. That's on my right-hand side here. You have your query setting, and you have your applied steps over here. What the applied steps is that if you take a step that you you don't want, and you find out that you have made a mistake, you can actually change that. You can actually cancel that. I just changed the name of table 2 to movie, and it's showing here that I've changed type. So if I uncheck this, it will come back, and you can see that is so we would continue. We want to look at our data. So we have rank, we have title. Okay, so good. We have live gross. We have the year. So this is our data. If you look, it's actually showing me 400 columns, profiling based on top 1,000 rows. Now, column profiling gives you an insight into your data, an in-depth look into your data. If your data is above 1,000, by default, Power BI gives you the top 1,000 rows. So if your data set is above 1,000 rows, you can come here and click, and it will show it. As you can see, I've clicked, and I'm having column profile based on the entire data set. So when you do that, you will have an insight into what your entire data set is like. So I've looked at, so the next thing is to look at your types, your data types. And this icon here where you have the alphabets A, B, C. So it's showing here when you click on it. No, sorry. When you right click on it, so it brings up the data type. So it's actually telling us on this column, my data type is text. So we can see the A there. So, okay, title also it's text. We have the live gross showing, and we have our year. So I'm going to change our year to date. So when you do that, you can see that it has actually brought in the dates. So once you are done with the kitchen of the Power BI, which is the Power Query, the next thing to do is to click close and apply. When you close and apply, Power BI will quickly get the data for you. You can see it's actually loading the data and bring it into your Power BI desktop so that you can start further analysis. So it is important we clean our data before bringing it in. So Power BI had brought in my movie data in. You can see on my far right, you can see the live gross, the rank, the time, and the year. So we have a clean data to work with. So we have gotten data from an online from online. So we'll also try to get data from a database. So I'm going to go click on get data. I want to get this data from a database, which is a category of data source. So you come here and you click, hit the button, database. So it gives you different data sources on that database. So it's showing SQL Server, Access Database, SQL Analysis, your IBM, your MySQL database, and a lot. The list is really huge. Microsoft had done so well. So we have a lot here. So my data that I want to connect with is from Access Database. So I'm going to click Connect. So it's going to connect with, it's asking where it is. So I'm going to open it. So I have access here. So I want to bring in the Northwind database, and I'll click open. Now, if you take a look, it has brought in the Northwind database. We have a lot here. So it's important you don't just load everything. Pick what you want. What are the questions you intend to answer with your analysis? That will inform what you intend to do. So I could come here and pick a customer. So it shows me the customer list. It gives me a preview. So you could pick employee. So it gives also a preview of what you have on your employee lists. So whatever you want, you can, as long as you check them in here and click the transform button, it will bring it in. It will bring in that data. So assuming I want to look at the sales reports, what exactly is happening with the sales report, from which country, which category, you know? So here you will see those items, and if it is what you want, just bring them in. So I'm just going to bring in my employee and I will say transform. Take notes, we have moved away from the desktop. We are now in the Power Query where we can do our transformation. So it's trying to make a connection with that employee file and is bringing it in. I'm going to click refresh. When you are in the Power Query editor, you have to look out for things that you don't need. Ensure your data that you're bringing in is exactly what you intend to see, and that you don't clog your system with data sets that you don't need. It's taking a bit of time. So I've gotten my data, the employee data. So I will check. So I'm checking the data type. So this is text. Good. The first name, the email addresses, you know, the job title, and this is the business phone number. So if this is what you want, you bring it in. If not, you can also go back to edit it. So if this, I'm okay with this, I'm just going to click close and apply. So I've connected, this is a database, an access database. So I've brought in the employee list. Mark, I hope I'm still audible. A little bit. We'll give it a little bit of time. It's loading the data into the model. So my data is loaded. I have my movie. I have my employee data set here. Take note, this is your data. If I click on this, it will bring back the data for me. So this is where you actually come to do the visualization we talked about, which we know is a graphical representation of your data using maps and using graphs and values. And so at this place, you could do your modeling. So this is actually another topic on its own. So we have gotten data from an online using the web. We have gotten data from a database. Let's quickly get a data set from, let's say, PDF or a flat file. So you can come here and click Get Data. Usually the same process, you know, to get data. So once you click and you move. So let's quickly go get a file. So let's get an Excel file. So we are going to connect with that Excel file. I will get my sales data file. And the moment you click open, Power BI will make a connection with that data. It's really so sweet to see how beautiful and fast this is. So Power BI had made a connection with it. So my navigator pane is open, asking me which of the data do I want to get. So I want to get this in-stock data. So I'm going to look, okay, this is what I want. And the ideal practice is to say transform. Right here, our data is in. So that's the in-stock data. But take a very good look at this data set. We have null value appearing on the top of it. So I don't want to just load this data this way. You can see null value appearing at the top of it. So I want to take out the null value. So I'm going to click the home button. On this place, we have remove rows. So Power BI is asking, what rows do you want to take out? The top row, the bottom row, wherever that data, that error or that you intend to transform is, you click. So mine is on the top row. So I'm going to hit this button, take out the top row. It's asking me how many rows. Sometimes you may have 3, 4. For this data set, I have just 1. So I'll put 1 and hit the OK button. So watch how beautiful. So even if you have 1,000 columns, or Power BI will take it off in a second. So it has taken off that row out of it. Then I'm having column 2, 3. So these are not good. I want to really, it's not looking well. I want to name this data, give it a good name. So I'm going to come back and say here, I'll click, when you click the transform button, what I intend to do is I want to make, this is the ideal thing. We have item number, we have category, we have the products, and this makes sense. So I want to use this first row as headers. So when you come here, you hit the transform button, you'll see here, use first rows as headers, or use headers as first row. So what I want is for it to use first row as header. So when I click on this, Power BI automatically in a split of a second has done that for me. So it has taken off the first, it has taken off that rule and is using my first rule as headers. So this is beautiful. I want to still check. What do I have? I'm having empty columns here. You can see my column 9 over here and column 10. I have null values. So there's no point bringing them in like that. I want to clean it. We are in the kitchen, so it is important we do that. So I would click on the column 9 and 10, and I want to duplicate, take that out. You can do that by right-clicking, to say remove columns, and it automatically take off that column. You could also do it this way. Let's quickly remember I said on apply step, whatever step you have taken and you want to undo it, you can just come here and take it off. So I'm going to take off that remove columns. And you see they are here. Another way to do this is also to come here and you'll be seeing remove columns. So it's asking which of the columns, you just remove column or other columns. So I want to say remove columns, and you still have the same thing over here. So having done that, we are going to be looking at our data type, which is very, very important. So our number, the item number here is saved as test. Good, and category test. So we have a product name as test, the work ID as a date. So this, remember I said when you click on this, you would get the different data types that we have. So we have a week ID, good as text, our average inventory. We have our in-stock data as percentage, but it's showing here as a decimal. So I intend to change this in stock average to percentage. I will just hit this button here, change type to percentage, and watch it will automatically transform that column. So my sales is also saved as a whole, as a decimal number. So I think we're good. I'm good with these data sets. So I'll just come back and click here on your file, click close and apply. And it automatically take that data back into your Power BI desktop. So our in stock data is there. So we have gotten the file from the web. We've also gotten. So we can also come here and create, okay, let's get data. Let's CSV data. If you get a text CSV, so it's showing here, I could load that, okay, open. And so when I click transform, it is here. So these are the little tricks that you could do, little transformation that you could do in your Power Query editor. So my QCell one is here. I'll still come back here and say, maybe new source. It will still ask you for where the file is. So I'm going to say text CSV. I want to get the two data. So I'll say QCell2 and I'll declare, say open. So I'll say OK. So I brought in its text CSV file, two of them. One is January to March, and the second one is April to June. But I intend to merge these files together. So the way to do it, you could this is one way you could create a reference, and you say, come to home and click what? Append queries. So I will append this query. It's actually asking me, what are the number of tables you want to append? So it's just 2 tables. So I've said it's 2. If it's more than 2, you change it and click 3 or more. So I'm on Q1 and it's asked, so I want to add Q2 to 8, and I'll click OK. Can you imagine? Can you see the Power BI I brought in the 2 files? So I have to rename this. I will rename this as maybe half year sales. You could also, one of the tricks, you could also disable loading so that when I load my data, I've disabled Q2 from coming in, and I will disable this also from coming in. So I'm good. I've gotten this. So I can say here, on the file, remember you close and apply, and Power BI will bring in your data into your Power BI desktop. So we can see we have what? And the employee have sales in stock data. We have movies. So we have successfully brought in a PDF file, a web from a database, and a CSV file. Let's quickly go get data from an Azure SQL. So still the same process. So we're getting this data from an Azure SQL. And you just hit this connect button. So Power BI is asking the question, where is the server? So you need to supply the server name to be able to continue your work. So I'll go get the server name for that. And it's asking the database, you must supply this information. What is a server name? Once you do this and it's correct, ensure you copy directly, copy correctly, and you hit the OK button. So these are the files that I have in my Azure SQL data that I brought in. So I just want to bring in only the one that I need. So you have to check what exactly do you want to get from here. So let's say I want to get my actor. So it gives me a preview here on the navigator pane. You could see a preview of what is in my actor file. So I'm going to hit the transform button, and it takes us directly into Power Query. Right now we're in the kitchen, so we need to do a bit of transformation. Remember, the Power Query is where we do all the reshaping. So I want to look at the columns. I have actor ID, I have the first name, I have the family name, and I have full name. The first name is Tom, the family name is Cruz, and here I have Tom Cruise. So bringing in the two columns here is just a repetition of what I have here. I think I prefer to work with the full name. So I will just take out the first name and the family name. So I will hit you right click to say remove columns, and it's done. Yeah, I have date of birth. Please take note of this. We have dates and we have time together. So if I prefer to work with the date, so when I come to the data type, if I just say just give me date, so it's going to just give me the date, and the time will take out the time. But there are other ways to do it. I could also say, no, I want to work with my time, but I want them in separate columns. So I've unchecked that. You can see my date and my time is here. So I will come back here to say split columns by delimiter. So Power BI is very intelligent. It's asking me what type. So if it's going to be custom, there are other, it's making some other suggestions. Is it by a comma, a colon, and other. So I'm going to say just a space, because I can see a space in between the date and the time. And I'll say by, the leftmost delimiter, and just hit the OK button. And beautiful, in less than a second, Power BI had separated for me the date and my time. But be very careful. I'm going to look at my nomenclatures, look at the date, DOB1, DOB2. I prefer to rename this as date of birth. And I'll do the same for this. I'll rename it as the time of birth. So this is date of death. I feel I don't need it maybe for my this because I have none. So I could say remove, and I just want to work with the gender, the date of birth, the full name. So we have my role, and over here is actually showing there are other things in this table. Here is showing me there are tables here. So on my role, I have other things. So you really need to do this cleaning so that you could have a good work. So you'll be able to do your analysis. So on this role, my role, what do I intend to bring? Okay, let me get the either the theme. Let's get the theme. Okay, I'll hit this and I'll say okay. So there are values there. So I would uncheck this and just give me Power BI. Please bring in what do we intend to get here now? Just the title. Give me the title of the theme. So okay. You could see that Power BI had done that, and to tell me, okay, the first one is the War of the Walls, the last summary. So I would rename this to be title. So I'll just say movie title. So great. So I've changed our data type, and we're about leaving the Power BI, the kitchen of the Power BI. I think my data is okay. So once you ensure that your data is good to go, you hit the close and apply. Power BI would do that for you. So it's trying to bring in my data, the Power BI desktop. Because it's structured data, and I think because my internet, so it's taking a little bit of time, but I'm just going to allow it to quickly load into my Power desktop. While it's loading, we have brought in a CSV file, file from a flat file. We have gotten from the web. We have also gotten from database. It's simply just the same process. Just go hit the get data button here and look for the type of file you intend to bring, and Power BI will get it out for you. I think my network is a little bit slow. I'm going to give it. Always ensure that the data you're bringing in into your Power BI, they are free from in you would to see or what you want. Wow. Okay, I've done acting up. So it's making a connection with it. It's rather slow. Let me try and change the bits I want to. Well, Apologies for my internet connection. It's rather slow over here. I'm trying to make a switch. Oh. This is taking. Let's see. So it's actually the same process to do that. Wow. I think the internet is actually distorting over here. But well.
Yeah, we do seem to be having a bit of lag.
While it's actually doing that, probably we could.
Maybe we could take some Q&A from the chat.
Let's see the okay. Yeah.
Hi, Gloria. I think we've got a good connection at the moment.
I think sorry, Mark, you said something?
Yeah, I think we had a good correct. It seems to have come back. We seem to have a good connection at the moment.
Oh, okay.
If you just want, yeah. Let's see if we can just minimize that and continue.
Okay.
It's still, we can see 5,100 and odd rows. It's still loading that data.
Yeah, yeah.
How many rows are there?
Yeah, close to 7,000.
Okay, we'll be there in a minute, won't we? Great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know about 7,000. I said 7.
And can you remind us again what website this is coming from? Because it looks like a very useful website. Hooray.
So our data is in. So it's successful now. So we could see our data in here. All the sections, so the time of births, everything is here. So we could create whatever visuals that we intend to do with that. Now for time, I think I have less than 9 minutes. Six is the same. When you want to get in your data, just click on the Get Data button from your Power BI desktop, and you could get whatever data you want. So it's really beautiful working with a Power BI. Working with Power BI, so you could connect with a lot of data sources. So maybe Mark, we should just take the questions. So I think I've done file, database, Power Platform, and Azure.
Thank you, Gloria. That was an absolutely brilliant talk, as many people on the chat are attesting. I particularly liked your description of query editors as the kitchen of Power BI. That's a great description, and obviously you're clearly a trainer, experienced trainer, because you structured and explained so well. Let's have a look at some questions, and let's go. And I have to find the questions amongst all the tributes. Let's have a look. So if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. Great. So one thing, it was a very lovely data set. Could you share with us the link to, because I'm sure people would like to try it themselves, and if they've got the link to the web page for the movie data set, then they can certainly do it themselves. That would be great.
Okay.
And if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat.
Okay.
Lovely. Great.
So I've dropped the link for the web.
Thank you, Gloria. So a quick question here. With this data, what's your favorite way of visualizing this data?
What's my what?
Your favorite way of visualizing this data? Is there a particularly good way? You've shown us some tables and things, but are there better ways of visualizing this data? Have you tried bar charts or matrices or anything? What would you say?
Yeah, I could do that. You want me to do that, or you're asking what are my best ways?
If you've got a nice way of visualizing it, that'd be great to show us it.
Okay. Now for the half sales, if I'm going to do a visual for that, I would like to put my sales, and I just want to represent that the total sales in a card form, and it's telling me you can see that. So this is just quick and fast for you to do. If you take your install data, I want to get maybe the sales with what are the categories? So this is a bar chart. This simply tells us, give you an insight, what's exactly happening on the stock data. So I could see that premium computers using the data, they are selling more, followed by the low-cost computers. If I place my custodian, so premium computers, so I have it's about 92,541,000. So they followed by the low-cost computer. So you could use a bar chart for this, you know. So this is 14 million. So it shows you exactly what is that. So you can make an informed decision. So if I'm the owner of the business now, okay, maybe I'm talking about the management. There's no need to getting tablets. People are going more for premium computers or low-cost computers. So we invest there rather than investing here. So with this, the management or organizations are able to make informed decisions that will benefit the whole the organization. I hope this answers your question, Mark.
It does indeed. And thank you very much for that and for an absolutely wonderful talk. I know that a lot of people, including myself, have really enjoyed it. I think you've hit the nail on the head exactly with the audience here. So thank you again. What I'm going to do is just put Rory on the spot and just Rory, I mean, you're on the next session. I can see you're in the presenter slot there. Do you just want to say hello? And again, thanks so much to Gloria for that session. That was wonderful. So Rory, do you want to say hello and give us and we're not going to start for 3 minutes, but just give us a 1-minute overview of what you're talking about?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm literally just ready to go. Can you all hear me?
We can. That's really nice. What are those lights doing behind you?
Sorry?
I can see, we can hear you and see you.
I didn't even mean to present my screen actually.
No, well, your video.
Yeah. So yeah, really looking forward to running this session. Is it a session? It's a bit of a mixture of all sorts of things, but ultimately it's about storytelling with data. And I'm actually going to show you how you can really get into using the technical bit of Power BI URL. So this is a beginner session, but I tell you what, some of the stuff is going to feel less like a beginner session, I'm afraid.
But if anybody can explain it, you can, Rory.
Yeah, but it's okay because the fundamental principle of what we should be doing with our Power BI reports is that we should be telling stories. And that is what this session is. It's going to be about. And there might even be some Power Apps involved at some point as well.
That's great, Rory. We look forward to it in a minute's time.
Fab.
Good.
I don't know what's going on my screen. It's recording all sorts of things. So so shall I start sharing or anything like that?
Yes, if you would, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rory. And we'll
just
start exactly on the hour at 1 o'clock.
Brilliant.
1 o'clock British Standard Time, 12 o'clock GMT.
Brilliant.
Great.
Okay. Go with that one there. Good. I'm sharing my screen.
And we can see your
should have been
screen.
really nice. Good. Okay.
Great.
I don't know why I'm starting with about me. I probably should do this is my little app. It'd be nice to have a little a nice little image here, wouldn't it be, of the session? But I think in the minute that I have left, I don't think I'll be able to add that image. So I should probably just jump over to Power Bootcamp. That will work for us, and we'll just do that as a little opener for the session. Is that me down there? Not quite me. We just find Rory.
Right, lovely. There you go, Rory.
Fab.
Fantastic.
Wow. How about that?
It's now 12 o'clock GMT, so over to you.
Fabulous. Right. Well, hello everyone. Can you see my face as well? Or have I done
Yes,
all
we can
that?
see your face.
Okay.
We can see your face, and we
Brilliant.
can see your slide.
Hello
your screen.
everyone. Thank you for having me. I hope you're enjoying yourself at the Power BI Bootcamp for 2021. I am running a session on storytelling with data using Power BI URLs. It's let's just call it an interesting session. It's interesting anyway, because anything to do with Power BI is interesting. But this one we're going to go in a good few directions. But what I have done is I've been busy beavering away, creating a blog post for you so that you can go back and then learn again the things that I've been talking about, because I think some of them will go in and some of the things that I tell you won't kind of go in quite so easily. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump across to just to do a little bit about me. Let me just do that. Jump in there. So a little bit about me. I'm an accountant by trade. I'm not an accountant anymore. I'm actually in fact, let me just jump out here. I know what it's done. I'm an accountant by trade, but I don't work as an accountant anymore. I'm actually a Microsoft MVP, and I'm a Power Platform solution architect. So effectively 5 years ago, I moved away from doing the whole accountancy piece into the very early version of Power BI, and it might be I think it is 5 years ago actually. Now Power BI was quite young at that point in time. I was a little bit younger. I'm a little bit older now, and now I happen to work for Hybrid in the UK, and I work alongside Peter Veenstra. So if you've ever looked up much on Power on SharePoint, on Power Automate, there's a very, very good chance that you'll end up on his website called sharepains.com. From my side, actually, I'm going to jump back on here. This is just a Power App, by the way, but it sort of presents itself a little bit better if I just jump around this way. So if you want to learn about Power Apps, then a great place for you to go is this. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Is www.powerplatformlearn.academy. So powerplatformlearn.academy. And what I've done is I've put together lots of different courses and materials, of which the Canvas Apps course is a pretty big one. And if in all honesty, it's very long, but you will be seeing some Power Apps during this presentation. So moving on, I also set up with Peter Veenstra and a number of other great people. We set up Power Apps for Kids. So we teach children about Power Apps, and then I've got a YouTube channel, and my blog is at it is at powerplatformlearn.com, and in fact we will be going there, so powerplatformlearn.com, because I'm actually going to direct you to some resources here that if you want to play along with this, and you might want to do this now actually, powerplatformlearn.com, then you would need to go to resources, and then you would need to go to Power BI URL filters made easy. Then what you need to do is there's actually a Netflix PBIX file that you would need to download, and it's just located here. So if you want to play along later on, you would need to download this PBIX file. It should just download somewhere on your computer. I'm kind of hoping that this will actually download. I can't actually see all of my menus here, so I don't even know if it's downloading, but let's just say it does. So that would give you the PBIX file, and then I'm going to use that PBIX file so that we're all using effectively the same PBIX file, and then that way we'll push it up to the Power BI service, and then we'll actually get it working. So moving back, there's not much more to say about me. I've known a lot of people in this community for a while, and yeah, it's very kind of all the people for you guys to have me on this session. So what I'm now going to do is I am now going to tell you a story using as it happens Power BI within Power Apps. And I'm actually going to tell you the story of Leicester City. So I don't know if we've got any Leicester City supporters or anything like that. It doesn't really matter that much. By the way, I'm not looking at the chat in this, so I can't really see what. I'm just going to jump and see if I can see the chat whilst we're on here. So yeah, please, if there's anything in the chat, I can see the chat now, so I can see what's going on. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to tell you the story of Leicester City, but it's going to be well, it's a cool story, and let's just jump across and see how that works. So the story of Leicester City is quite an interesting one. In 2016, they won the Premier League, but really, they should never have won the Premier League, or at least statistically, they should never have won the Premier League in 2015-16. And the reason why is because the previous season, they spent most of the season actually as the very bottom team in the Premier League. So they shouldn't have even been in the league, let alone winning it. So after 10 points in 2015-16, 2014-15, the previous season, they had very few points, and we can see this here. And this is a proper Power BI report. This is a report that we can actually interact with. We can actually see how their season went. You can actually see that during the season they were sort of broadly okay there, and then they just tailed off. So you can even sort of look at this tables. I've actually not looked at this and the match finder is quite good fun to look at. So if I was to look directly at Leicester, we would actually see their season up until that point, and so you can actually see that they'd actually spent a lot of time losing to people. They lost to QPR, they lost to Southampton, West Brom. West Brom would be a bad one to lose to. They actually drew against Burnley, but they lost to Crystal Palace. So this is an interesting story, because I think later on we should see that that situation change around. So if you look at it now, 10 matches to go, still at the bottom of the table. They spent ages at the bottom of the table there, and we can see that. But actually, as it happens, they had a huge end to the season. So what this is a filtered version of the end of the season. So it's actually looking at match numbers. I think it's something like 29 through to 38, something like that. It's 10 matches. And what we can see here that is on the left-hand side, you've got Leicester, and Leicester had a massive end to the season compared to all of the teams around them. So if you actually look at the running totals, and this is just for that part of the season. In fact, this running total here, where is Leicester there? Now, in fact, I don't know if this works perfectly. In fact, it might well. No, it's actually a running total of where their final point score was. So it's not a perfect example there. But anyway, so they had a huge end to the season, but ultimately they were quite lucky to survive. So you should have actually look at their full season. This is Leicester at the end of the season. I find this absolutely fascinating to see that Leicester just did so badly up to one point, and then they just rocketed. I mean, they weren't even close to the relegation battle by the end. So that then leads us on to the following season, where Ranieri replaced the manager at the end of 2015. You kind of think, well, that's a bit strange because they were doing pretty well at that point. And actually, by match 10, they were only 3 points off the lead. So they were if we actually look at this here, we can see that Leicester is Leicester is just shown here, and that's where they are at the moment. So they're not that far off. And by match 20, they were still looking okay. Now, this is quite a busy looking. It's quite a busy looking table here, and so what we can do is we can actually just filter this so that we're actually only looking at the top teams there. If you actually look at this thing here, you can actually see that Leicester. Actually, that will just filter on Leicester actually. Leicester had actually spent some time as the top team in the league, so that's kind of interesting already compared to the previous season. And if we kind of carry on, then by match 30, the Manchester teams were kind of out of the picture, and because they're kind of looking there at the bottom. So you've got Leicester on 63, Tottenham on 58. So that's looking. It looks like, and Tottenham looked like they were going to be the team that was going to do well in that season. But by the end, by the match 35, they were away and clear there. They were going to win the league. But actually the real story of that season was Jamie Vardy, because he did incredibly well. He scored 0.7 goals per match, which for a striker is really, really good. He had 2 players of the month, and in the 36 appearances he had, there were 22 wins, which anyone would be happy with. And I think that the final bit of the season isn't to do with Leicester at all. It's actually to do with Tottenham. And look at this: how painful must that have been to be pipped at the end by Arsenal on the very, very last day. That must have been so painful. I'm sure there are some people breaking out into a cold sweat at the moment, thinking of the end of their season, especially when you think they actually managed to lose in those last 2 matches to Newcastle and to Tottenham, and they didn't actually. Did they score a goal? In fact, look at that! Oh my God, they actually lost 5-1 to Newcastle in the very last match of the season. So I'm just going to got to have a look at this. It's got nothing to do with the presentation, but check that out. They lost 5-1 in the very last match of the season. That is absolutely shocking. But you can actually, this is me just bouncing out and looking at Google to see what happened there. I mean, goodness me, I don't even know if there are any red cards, but that is like head in your hands, shame on you. So that takes me to the end of this story. And I hope that you are looking at this and thinking that, look, in this data source that I've got here, there are 56,000 lines of data. And I've shown you some intersections that I believe are really interesting, so that you can then say, hey, do you know what? Filtering data is really cool. I really want to learn more about this idea of filtering data. Any comments at this point? Any comments at this point? What I might do is I might pop the link into I might try and pop the link into the chat for when we get going on this. So the next part of the presentation is actually, I'm going to tell you a little bit about storytelling, because I think, well, I'm actually really fascinated by storytelling. And I'm just going to jump back and back onto here. Oops. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of the maybe some of the kind of science of storytelling. So about just to say a few words about storytelling. I haven't actually put any pictures in this, but so storytelling, you know, it's about who we are. This is what we do as humans. We tell stories. This is how we've managed to become the people, the organized entities that we are. It's meant that we could acquire food, relationships, religion, humor. It's all baked into stories. The Silk Roads was an incredible way in which both products and stories and religion all passed from east to west and from west to east as well. So storytelling is really, really important, and it is part of our DNA as humans. So sort of dropping back there, properties of a good story. Well, you need a hook, and you actually need a threat to stability. That's just my opinion anyway. So the idea with story hooks is that you have you might raise a question, or you might quote. These are some ideas around the sorts of things that you might have in a story. But what I'm trying to say here is that some of these things aren't really apparent in a Power BI report. So you might have a question, you might have a quote, you might have a strong statement. You take something like that big red bus during Brexit, which said that, you know, 350 million pounds a day was going to Europe, etc., etc. You know, it's on a red bus. It's a bus that moves. You know, it was actually from at the very least as a statement, it worked. It did a very, very good job at, not that I believe in what they were actually saying at all. So there you are, surprising statistic. That's something that you can do as well. Anecdotes, they help as well, but obviously you're not going to put that into a Power BI report most of the time. So I'm just going to jump back now. The next thing I want to talk to you about, this is really important. So this scarf mnemonic, and this is things that make us kind of uncomfortable in a way, and so the idea is that there are a series of things that if they are threatened, then we will respond to them. So the mnemonic is S for status. So if our status is threatened, and you see it all the time about you know, people having job titles, all sorts of things, reorganizations, whatever it might be, people are big into status. You've only got to look at Jeff Bezos going to the out to space for 11 minutes. Who would do that? What is the point? But of course it gets him into a club, doesn't it? That's nice. So certainty is important. So people, you know, if you take away their certainty, then that is a threat to them. And so think about that when you're delivering your Power BI reports, about whether or not a threat to certainty may the thing that you thought you knew about was under threat. Thank you, Mark, for the Brexit bus. So autonomy, threats to autonomy. In fact, that kind of keys into what was going on that Brexit bus. It was all about autonomy, wasn't it? You know, how could they do this to us and all that sort of thing. But relatedness is also important, and that is the way in which we relate to other people. I don't really think that really keys in that much to a Power BI report, but it is part of the part of this idea. And then finally, this is a really good one to go for, is fairness. You know, how unfair is it that our competitors are like this? How unfair is it that this person only gets this amount of pay, but they actually only return this amount to the business? You know, that would be a kind of fairness thing. But there would be lots of examples of where fairness would come into play within a story. And then, of course, the sad news in Power BI terms is that that's not really going to come out that much. It's not really the nature of a. I'm going to leave that question on the difference between a Power BI report and a dashboard. Dashboard is just a collection of Power BI tiles. That's all it is. And frankly, I don't use them that much. You won't see me almost ever using them. I don't. It's not really relevant to in my particular world. So where does that leave us? Well, that is a very good point. And I knew I would get to this point in the presentation where I'd be thinking, what shall I do next? Well, as it happens, I did write a Power. I did write something for you as a way of us understanding, and we're now going to bring it back to Power BI, and we're going to start talking about Power BI filters, because filters are cool. But then we're going to have to ask the question later on about how on earth we're actually going to use it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to kind of step through this post, because this post is your go-to place when we're done with this. So what I'm actually going to do is I am going to run through this post and tell you, and actually do effectively a live build of the ideas within it. So what I've got is I have a download. I downloaded the Netflix. There was something to do with their original material that they do. I can't remember what they call them. But anyway, it's the Netflix originals or something like that. And I downloaded it, and it tells me different aspects of those particular reports. Now, if I jump and move this on here. This is this Netflix originals. So there's 584 productions. The average IMDb on it is 6.27. Now, believe me, I'm not going to tell an amazing story here at all. I can guarantee you that. But it is it's a reasonably interesting data set. And what I'm going to do is just going to show the relationships between the tables. In fact, there are a whopping 2 tables here, and the way in which they're related is that the Premier links to the date, and that's pretty well about it. In terms of the fields themselves, the date is just a date dimension. That's nice and easy. But I kind of like added a little kind of thing here called score category. So essentially, if the IMDb score is a bit above 8, I said, well, that's very high. And I said above 6 is high. I said greater than 4 is okay. And then I said anything less than that is low, something like that. It was really only so that I could have something to filter on. And you can see there's different genres here. So there's all sorts of different genres, and we'll just be playing around with this later on. So there's a part of me that wonders whether this is going to be a short presentation or a long one. We shall see. So I have this report here, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to do this as a kind of live build, like I say. So I'm going to now go to, in fact, what I would really like to do is to make sure that you can get to this PBIX file. A copy link address. It should be able to. Oh, that's terrible. That doesn't go there at all. I'm going to click on this thing here. Go right. This should. I may have been a bit silly on this because it's supposed to take me to this post. That did not work. There we are. There's the post. And what I want to do is jump in there and look at the link. Oh, it doesn't have a link. Well, that explains why it doesn't go anywhere. So that makes life interesting for me. Because how am I going to get this across to you? Because I couldn't actually save it inside there. I will just give me 2 ticks. I'm going to head over to Azure portal. This is good fun, isn't it? So I'm going to head over to Azure. I better sort of take it off screen so that so that I can go to this, and I'm going to go to my Storage Explorer and partner network. Sorry, I'm just doing something off screen here. Education, blob containers, global share. How sad is this? And go onto there and onto there, and then do properties, and then grab that, and then I'm going to see if this works. Oh, you pain. Doesn't have any. How bizarre. I know why. I know why. It's because this is really weird, actually. It's because it's got it's a slightly strange URL. I tried this before, so there we are. That will work. Good. Cancel that, then go on back onto the chat. We're back cooking with gas, everyone. So I am just popping this in the chat here, and you should be okay. So can people see if they can copy that link? Now, don't click on the link because I think it's missing the it's got a space between Netflix and originals. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go onto the blog post and make an update to that because I'm nice like that. So I'm going to click on there, click on the link, paste it in there, and then that should me done. In fact, I did do it last time. I didn't just press the save. That's the only problem. So copy that. And what I'll also do is I will go on to update, view the post, and then I will put this into the chat there for you. So now you've got the link to the post, and you've also got you'll be able to head down here, and the theory goes that if you actually click on download the file, you'll actually get to the file. So let's do this live. Let's do it live. Let's call it Netflix Originals. I'll call it Netflix demo because I've actually got demo. Right, so this is completely live now. This should be the same experience as you will be having, so you can play along with this. So now I'm going to click open on this. Enjoying this, Mark? It's all very.
I am indeed.
Enjoying this? Do you think it's going to work?
Well,
do you think it might work?
The good thing is that there's some chance that it won't. It's always nice to see somebody flop on their face.
Oh,
it's usually me.
Thank you. There is an advantage to not having remote sessions, isn't there?
There is.
Or or to having so what I'm now going to do, look, I've got this, it's the same report. I've just called it Netflix demo. I'm going to click publish. I'm going to save the changes because it always asks you that. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to whack it up onto my workspace, and I've got a kind of sandbox there's my sandbox demo workspace. This is what you guys can do, by the way, you know, it's okay. So what it's going to do is going to fire it up to the cloud, and then we're going to start working with this. And I am deliberately doing this so that this is the experience, this is what you guys will get to do. Now the only difference between me and you is you'll have a slightly different URL to me, but you will be able to actually use the filters. So soon I will actually be asking you to kind of write these filters and so on in order for us to get this thing going, or maybe just suggest filters that we might be able to look at. So I'm going to jump onto the review page now. Looking on this landing page here, notice one thing here. Okay, the first thing to note on here is this thing here, report section. Really, really, really important. Now, every single Power BI report has got one, or rather, the very first page is called report section, but every other page is called some squiggly thing, report section, something, something, something. So you can see that. Now, I just want you to be really, really observant when it comes to this side of things. And I've also got this genre review. I can't remember why I made this, by the way, but I'm sure I had a good reason for it. In fact, no, what I did was I had this page was in one way, and this page was the same thing but done a slightly different way. But look, they've got slightly different report sections. So that's kind of interesting to start with. But the sort of thing that I'm going to now start digging into, I'm just going to jump back to, I will jump back to, I don't know where my blog post has gone. It's disappeared. In fact, it might be just because Power BI, powerplatformlearn.com, onto my blog post, and then I'm now just going to make a sort of commentary about this being the standard thing here. So there's GUIDs on here, and the reason I'm not bothered about the GUIDs is because this is a sandbox environment that I'm just going to delete eventually. But notice here, this bit here, app.powerbi.com, everyone gets this, and it goes over to groups. And then this bit in the middle here, that is the name, that is the GUID for the workspace that you are in. The next bit, it then says /reports / I don't know if I can make this bigger. No, I can't. No, I can't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it into Word, because Word is a little bit easier. Word, little bit easier. Is anyone playing along with this, by the way? You can, if you do get the chance to mention it in the chat, that's that would be great. So I will just pop that in there. So let's make this a bit bigger. And well, so we've got this groups. It kind of becomes relevant later on, and then reports, and then so you've got the GUID for the report there. And then finally, you've got this report section I mentioned earlier on. So that's the start point for all this. So I'm just going to undo, and so on. And now we get to the interesting bit, because now we've kind of got the ability to, we've got theoretically the ability to control this in such a way that we can start applying filters to it. Now, what I'll do is I'll show the blog post, because on the blog post, on the blog post, I then start talking about what a standard report is, and saying, well, actually, look, this is a standard report here. In fact, these report sections I think will be the same as what you've got. I've not actually tested this out completely, but I think that because we are literally working with the same report, then you'll actually see that these things are exactly the same. So you can actually kind of, cut and paste some of the things that I'm providing on the blog post. I then make a comment about Power BI, the base URL for an embedded report, which is different. So with an embedded report, what you do is you go to File. This is really important. Embed report. You might want to be SharePoint Online. Don't. Then I'm going to click Website or Portal. And the next bit of it is really important as well, because there's an awful lot of gobbledygook here, but but all we do is we're going to delete all the way back. So if we look at the blog post, we're going to delete all the way back to where it says auto auth equals true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that off screen, because one of the bits on there is actually the tenant ID, and you know, I'm sure you're all lovely, but I don't fancy handing out my tenant ID at this point. So I'm going to get rid of all that stuff there. Excuse me. And I'm going to go back to Word, and we've now got this thing here, which is an embed code, and this, we can actually pick this up and we can put it into a Power BI, and we can actually put this into the web, and it will actually work. So what we should find is that I can actually grab that and I can hit the enter on it, and it'll actually fire up a report. It's the same report, and it feels slightly different because it's not proper Power BI anymore. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles around it. But this particular thing is quite interesting because there are different uses for this. So I haven't gone to the filters yet. I will do. But what I want to do now is I want to now go to I now want to go to SharePoint and just show you that if I jump onto SharePoint and I can just jump on there, you can start using this. So if I go to maybe a site, go onto there, and in fact, that was a bit of a weird one. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to go onto the actual site. And you can then go onto the edit page. But what you can do here is you can go and this is a little bit tricky, but you hit the plus. You don't have to do this now because it's okay. It's all sort of described in the blog post. Then you go down to embed. Then what you do is you can paste in your embed code, and then what that will do is it will put that report into your SharePoint site. But notice one thing that is different is it doesn't actually say the report page. So what it actually does is it actually just puts in the last known report page and just shoves it in. But there is a syntax for the report page. So if I actually jump onto here, and what you do is once you get past this question mark, what you do then is you put in ampersand and then you say page name, and it is deliberate that I say lowercase p uppercase n equals, and I can put report section. Now that's because I know that that one of the pages is actually called report section. So if I paste this in now, what we should find is this regenerates, but it's on a different page. And so if I kind of go back to, if I go back here, and I'll come off this here, and I go on to maybe go onto this genre review page, and I grab that bit of the URL there, and where am I? Where's SharePoint gone? Over there. And I change that from report section to report section and then the gobbledygook. Then it will move to that page. Now, the downside of all this is that we can't apply any filters to this. But we will be able to apply filters, I can absolutely assure you, because that's one of the things that we're going to do next. So what we can do is we can apply filters to these, and this is the bit where I would argue that it's kind of getting much more technical here, but it's not that bad. So what I can do is I can go on to this report here. In fact, this is the and if I go into edit mode on here, I then get to see my tables and my fields. This is really, really important, because what I can do now is I can now, and I'm going to do this on the fly, so there's a very, very good chance that I'm going to get this wrong first time around. So just bear with me. So the next bit here is I'm going to add some filters. Now, to add a filter onto this particular URL, it needs to have the question mark. An embedded one will already have the question mark. So I'm going to put the question mark in. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do it on, I'm going to do this on Word, and I grab all this, paste that in there, and I do question mark, and I need to kind of make it so that I can see them both. Yeah, that'll do. should work. Yeah, so I'm going to use this to help me to write the filter. So the way in which you do it is you go $filter equals, and then we have to do table name and then the field. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to say genre, and I'm going to do in, and I do open brackets, single quote, documentary. Now, I don't know if this is going to mess me up, by the way, because I can see that it's done some funny quotes there, and that's got a very, very good chance of messing me up. But we'll see. So let's give that a go. If it doesn't work, I'll just put it into Notepad and we'll do it from there. So I'm going to go on there and we'll give that a go. Let's have yet another tab here. So looking at that, I'm just looking at that. I do not like those quotes. I do not like them. Just going to make sure it's a proper quote. Now, what you'll notice, so what we should find, drum roll, is that when we open this up, it will be filtered down to only looking at documentaries. As far, in fact, I've done it wrong. Look at this. I've done it wrong because I said genre, and I haven't actually said what the table name is. And the table name is Netflix /genre. And I'm going to copy that, and just in case I've made a mistake with it. So now what you'll notice on here, how cool is that? By the way, that is cool. Because actually the only reason why it's not obvious that it's looking at documentaries is because we weren't on a page which actually told us. So if we actually go onto there and we actually remove this filter, so I'm going to copy and paste it, and we remove this bit which has got the question mark. Yes, I'll do that. Then we'll see that it just says documentary. But then if we kind of go and paste that back in, we should find that the filter is applied. I hope, is this cool? I hope you think this is cool, everyone. Mark, is this good? Interesting?
Very interesting.
Yes, it is interesting.
Yep.
So that's kind of that's the basis for the next part of what we're going to do here. But this, like, how are you going to use this? Now, the first thing to note is that when you copy and paste from here, notice all these funny percentage, this, that, and the others. It's just what happens when you do it in the web. I'm afraid, it puts these things in. So %27 means that it's a single quote, etc., etc. It makes life kind of tricky. Now, so what I'm going to do now is, does anyone have a filter that they would like me to apply to this? In fact, what I'm going to do, we can shout one out if you want, by the way. So I'm actually going to get rid of that. Anyone want me to apply a filter to this? Come on, someone out there must want, do we want to filter by language? Do we want to filter by something else?
Well, by high IMDb score.
That's not a bad one. That's not a bad shout. So how about let's just write it on the fly. Filter. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that one there. We know we've got that filter in already, documentary. We know it's there already. But the thing that I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to chain these together. So we're going to look at the documentaries which are, say, better than 8. So, and this is how you do it. Netflix / IMDb score. You must get this. Absolutely right in terms of case sensitive. You can't do sorting, I'm afraid. This is just filtering that we're doing. So Netflix IMDb score, and we'll say greater than or equal to, so because GE does that, it's in the blog post, it's greater than or equal to 8. Now, in theory, this should work. So I'm going to click the enter button on there, and in theory, can I have a round of applause for that? That is cool. Is that good? I think this is good. Thank you. Thank you. I got a clap. I heard someone. So So what we've seen is we can chain these things together. That's good. The other thing that I'm going to show you is that as well as that, and we'll go back to this one that we were looking at before. So I know, in fact, this one here, I'm not going to do it in there. I'm actually going to do it in Notepad because Notepad won't give me strange sort of text things and so on. So I've got to pop that up there. But what I want to show you is, you see those funny quotes there? That is not what I want. It's something that Word did to me. But what I deliberately said in, because I wanted to do another thing. And I think one of them is romantic comedy. Now, at this point, believe it or not, you're not case sensitive when you're at this point here, this romantic comedy and so on bit. You're okay at that point. So in fact, what you'll see in a moment is that we can, let's go back. Where are you? I've lost my I lost my internet. So we don't want to go there either. There, back. We're in the game. Okay, so what we should find here is that we're now going to have documentaries and romantic comedies, but we're not going to do anything to do with their IMDb score. Because by the way, there are no romantic comedies with an IMDb score of greater than 8. I just happen to know that. And they also, the other mistake is the report section is the wrong one. So I'm just going to grab this report section, just make it the actual correct one, because I'd keyed in the other one, but that's part of the fun of this process. So what went now? No, I've done some mistake here. Rory's made a mistake. I definitely made a mistake. That's interesting. So there's definitely a bit of a mistake there, because we should be filtering on comedy and romantic comedy and so on. But it's okay. I think that I'm working at such a pace that there's, it only takes, in fact, I can see it there. It doesn't say dollar filter. Mark, that one's on you, I'm afraid.
Okay, my apologies.
Oh, no, look, I don't know why it's not working, but no, look, trust me, it's okay. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to change it up a bit. So we've got, sort of really kind of 15 minutes to go, but we're going to change this up a bit. So remember that we did this thing where I did embed report and website or portal, grabbed that, copied that, and stuck it in Notepad, stick it on here, and then I'm going to get rid of loads of stuff. I'm just going to go back a bit and over to the auto ID equals true. Copy that. Now that's quite a long string. Well, it's a longish string anyway. But what I can do with that is I can pop that in there. It's going to fire up a report for me, but it's actually not filtered. It doesn't even know what page number it can do on. What I can do with that now is I can do and page name equals report section. So that should take me to the kind of main page with the different bits and pieces on. But what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to switch this up properly. This is like the bit where you need to really concentrate, because we're going to build an app with Power BI inside it, and we're going to knock in the filters. So I'm going to now just do it really quickly. Sorry. I'm going to head to apps. If you don't have the ability to make apps, then you may need to get your tenant administrator to give that permission. Hit a new app, go to Canvas app. I'm going to do demo filters. I'm just going to throw this app away when I'm done with it. 365, something like that. Click on that. It's going to create me an empty app, and all I'm going to do is put a text box in there and a Power BI report. This is the cool bit. So what I can do now is I'm going to go insert, and I'm going to go text input and just make that a bit bigger, and then I am going to go to multi-line, and then the default for this is going to be the URL that we first thought of, and I'm going to pump this up to about 20 just to make it a little bit easier for Mark to be able to see it. Then I'm going to go over to and I can hit the plus on here, and I can type in power, and I'm going to drag in the Power BI tile, but I'm not going to use the workspace dashboard tile approach. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go over to the left hand side there, click on tile URL, and I'm going to relate the tile URL to this text input. And so I'm going to put text input 1.text. So that now means that the Power BI report will relate to it. Now there is an error in here, and I'm going to be showing you what that error is very shortly, because what you'll find is that if we go onto here and I do the question, no, I don't need a question mark, and what is it? Dollar filter equals. In fact, I'm going to go to the blog post because I just want to kind of make sure we've got the right pace on this session. So I just want to make sure that we've got a nice easy one for us to use. So let us just use this bit here. So it should work, but you can never tell with these things. So let's just jump back over to here. Now, in fact, this. Oh, yeah, I've got to sign in. You always have to sign in. It's okay. In fact, this is a completely different Power App. It's not even the one that I was making. So I have just jumped onto here. I'm going to get rid of that. I have got quite a few screens open. It's definitely not that one. That was the one we were working with. And dollar filter equals, that should. Now that has not worked, and this is mysterious, and I'm wondering. Of course, this is the beauty of doing this sort of thing, because we know earlier on that we actually got this thing working. So this is definitely quite mysterious. So I'm actually going to jump back to one where it actually does work. In fact, this one definitely does work. So I'm just going to grab this for fun. And go back to the app that I was making and just see if this actually does it correctly. Oh, and I know why it doesn't work. I know exactly why it doesn't work. In fact, I deliberately did this, believe it or not. The reason why it doesn't work is because what you have to do to make this bit of it work is you have to go onto the actual, you have to go all the way up to the allow new API, and then you type in true. And then what you should find is that it will then do the filtering for you. And that is the bit where I think this is really cool. How cool is this? This is really cool. I think this is brilliant. So now I've now got this inside here. So I can say, well, actually, you know what? I want to make it greater than equal to 7. And now we can start to see more things happening. You can do all sorts of things. This is like now when we're getting into Power Apps, where you can do all sorts of things. In fact, you can actually just, you know, pop a little button in there on the right hand side. Button, you know, go over to the right hand side, and then I can put and on select. I'm going to go reset, and I'm going to do text input 1 text. Input 1, and what that will do is when I click the button, it's actually going to revert it to what it said before. In fact, I don't even like that one. So paste that in there. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to put, I quite like this original one that it's got here. So that's going to be my starting point. So if I said greater than equals to 3, it's going to be quite a lot of them. And then if I then said, well, actually going to make it 7, I'm going to get less. And then in theory, and if I could put romantic comedy, and then put the quotes in theory, that should work. Now that is cool. In fact, I think the weird thing was maybe when we did it before, I don't know what the ratings were on these romantic comedies, but they probably aren't very, maybe they aren't very high. There's 2 romantic comedies. Mark, I've got a film for you for this evening.
And what is it?
It's the To All the Boys To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Thank you.
It's a romantic comedy. It came out on 17th of August 2018. But anyway, look, it's just you know, it's a bit of fun here, and so all So now what I'm going to do is we're at 13:49. Brilliant. So what I'm now going to do, this is the basis of the app that I then showed you in terms of Power BI, because what you can do is you can go, actually, you know what, I really love that page. That's fantastic. Well, actually, I'm going to come off there. You're going to go screen. I'm actually going to duplicate that screen. Maybe you've got some amazing thing to say about it. And you say, well, actually, screen 1 is going to go to screen 2. So maybe what we do is we do, you know, a navigation. Let me just go insert button, drag that across there. Maybe we'll put navigate, pop that on there, and then on select, and we'll just type in navigate, and this is screen 1 underscore 1, because I haven't given it a name. And so what that means, it's going to bounce onto the second screen there. And so we can actually then, I don't know, we can have a bit of fun there. We can actually just grab that, pop that on there, do another one here. But you can put text boxes in. It's really straightforward to use. And I'm actually just going to say back on this one. So it'll just automatically navigate me back. I have to have been there before. So what you'll see is that I'm now bouncing between the two reports. One is on one is looking at the romantic comedies greater than or equal to 7, and this one is just straight documentaries greater than or equal to 8. But you can see that you can actually start to then say you can put in a text box and labels. You can put them in colors, you know, label, put a color in, something like hello world, and maybe pump that up to, I don't know, let's say it was 40 or something like that. So we can make that nice and big, and you can have, you know, this is the basis at the start of you making a story with this. Now, clearly you would connect to data and all those sorts of wonderful things. That's how you'd really do it. But this is the basis for doing this. So the final thing that I'm going to show you is, and I'm going to show you that the kind of the nature of the filters that you can do. So this is the really cool bit. So remember because and is your way of chaining things together. Equals, I tend to use in instead of equals. You've got not equal to, you've got greater than or equal to, you've got greater than, you've got less than or equal to, less than, and then the in one is the one I quite like, because you can have student age in, and you've got 2 dates that you could have there, or you can have address city in Redmond, London, those sorts of things. You can chain these things together, and that's me demonstrating that you can do that. And the final thing, I thought this was the final thing, is that one of the things in these table names is that if you have a space in your table name, you are going to need to put X0020, and so or on your column name. And so if we actually look on the Power BI report, I deliberately created a field, and I've never done this, by the way. I deliberately created a field called IMDb space score 2. So what that in theory means is, if we go back to our app, and I literally have never done this, just didn't have the time. Netflix, I'm just going to go on to there, and we'll do IMDb score, it's space score 2, and I have to put in, it won't work, by the way, because it's been messed up. And if I go and grab this and jump onto there and then pop that in the middle, the theory is that should work, and it does. Is that cool? What that means, I've just opened up the possibility of you using any report you've ever made with any field you've ever used in any of your reports. And that brings me to the end of this presentation with 7 minutes to go, and any amount of questions that you would like to ask me. I am done.
Rory, thank you so much for that. That was an absolutely whirlwind tour through URLs and Leicester City, and thank you as well for your film suggestions for this evening. I'm going to open it up to questions. Please do put a question in the chat window, and we'll see. Yes, so there's David Momo Holle is asking, can you give practical examples of where this would be useful?
Where you want to tell a story. That's the basis of this. So the problem that you have is a Power BI report doesn't tell a story. So the thing is, my question to you, it throws it back to you, is like, really? So you've got your Power BI report, you've got 6 million lines of data, and now, you know, you're to tell a story, it is like you've only got to look at the report that I showed you in terms of the football results. That report had 56,000 lines of data. And the reason why I could tell that story was because I filtered it. So basically, the premise of this is if you don't want to tell stories, then none of this is worth even listening to. If all you want to do is build Power BI reports and say, I've built the report, and then you go off and filter them, the big problem that you've got is that every time you go back to your Power BI report, it's where it was the last time you found it. That's how it is. So this is it. Yeah.
Rory, thanks for that. I agree with you. We've got to tell stories. A couple of questions here. Mateus K says, it should be easy to do it. Why is there no tool with a GUI? Maybe you shouldn't be asking you this question.
Yeah, that's not really a question for me. I mean, I know that Tableau, even all those years back, even 5 years back, we're doing storytelling with data. And I think the challenge to say is that a lot of people might think that bookmarks are your answer. I know that you had a session on bookmarks.
We did.
But the front problem with bookmarks is twofold. One is they tell one story. So if you've got 56,000 lines of data and you don't support Leicester City, then you may not be interested in it. And secondly, the storytelling is in the hands of the developer, who may know nothing about the actual events themselves.
Yep.
So that is the problem. And this is for me a little journey that I'm on in terms of, like, I'm totally convinced I will be telling loads of stories. I'm going to be grabbing data and just telling stuff until they get the message that actually telling stories really counts. And you know, you can build all the visuals you like. Notice what we've got here. What have we got? Bar charts. Bar charts are good enough for me. They're fine. Most people understand them anyway. And obviously, whereas other you know, you can get excited about all sorts of other different types of visuals and so on, which is great, but some of them people don't understand. I'm happy with tables, bar charts. You know, that's yeah, it tells a story, and you know, that's my take on it.
Okay, Roy, just a quick question. There is a famous book, Storytelling with Data, by Cole Nussbaumer Knaflic, if I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
Is it worth us having a look at that? Or I think she's also got a video from Google. Tell us about it.
It is worth looking at that. And she talks about two things. She talks about exploratory analysis and explanatory analysis. And basically, from having read that book and watched their videos and so on, what we are looking at with Power BI is a brilliant tool for exploratory analysis, for looking at something and go, oh gosh, isn't that strange? Yes, it's strange. Oh, that really is strange. But it isn't really a tool for explanatory analysis. And when I'm talking about explanatory analysis, you're talking about telling the story of what happened. And the very first example of that is the Napoleon infographic. It was one of the earliest infographics known, and it's not a repeatable infographic, but effectively the bar that you see is a geographical bar, as among other things, but it tells the story of the 400,000 of the Napoleonic forces that went across to Moscow. That by the time they got back along the Black Line, there was only like 10,000 of them left. And so this was one of the very first infographics. And this isn't Power BI, clearly, but it is a way of doing explanatory analysis.
Rory, thank you so much for your talk, and it was absolutely wonderful and very, very enlightening. What we're going to do now is we're going to ready up for the next talk, which is Ayobami Adeleke, and he is a presenter right now. He's going to be talking about 5 DAX tips that you should know. So in the 1 minute, Ayobami, do you want to just open your mic so make sure we can hear you, and share your screen to make sure that we can see your screen, and then we look forward to this Very interesting talk. Ayobami, over to you.
Mike. Hello, Mark. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Ayobami Adeleke. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can get a tiny bit closer to the mic, that would be even better.
All right. All right, let me share my screen quickly. All right, I'm sharing my screen right away. Confirm if you can see my screen.
We can't see your screen yet, at least I can't. Let's have a quick look. We're still seeing Rory. And
Okay.
let's try that one again. Glad it's not just me.
Let me share again.
We can see the yes, we can see your screen and we can see your desktop with lots of icons. Fantastic.
Okay.
Great.
All right, good. Right.
Perfect.
So once again, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. My name is Ayobami Adeleke. So today I'll be walking us through 5 wonderful tips to help us to optimize our performance when we work with DAX in Power BI. Go to presentation mode. Can we see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can. And you're in presentation mode, which is great.
All right, perfect. All right, so just a quick one about myself. So who is Ayobami Adeleke? Ayobami Adeleke is the presenter talking about 5 amazing tips for DAX in Power BI. I'm a Microsoft certified BI developer. I have the MCSA in SQL 2016 BI development. I also have an associate certification as a data analyst from Microsoft. I'm also a Microsoft in data warehouse development. I do master data management implementations. I design and implement ETL processes and pipelines for data orchestration and data movements. I also work as a business intelligence developer. I build analytics models, tabular models, cube models for BI reporting. Also, I have expertise working with Microsoft Business Intelligence Stack, going from the SSIS services for integration of data from heterogeneous data sources to integrating these data sets into an analytical model using the SQL Server analysis services, and also doing reporting with SQL Server reporting services and Power BI reporting services. All right, so let's begin. So today I want to talk about 5 amazing tips on how to improve our performance, our DAX performance in Power BI. But before we go deep, what is DAX itself? DAX is data analytics expression. This is a programming language used within, also used in analysis services in SQL Server that helps to create calculated columns. It helps you to create measures and custom tables within your Power BI model. So DAX is a very flexible tool. It helps you, it's a combination of functions, operators, and constants that you can use in formulas, in expressions, to either calculate or return more than one values within your Power BI data model. So this is just a quick URL that can take you to the Microsoft documentation on creating measures with DAX in Power BI. So let's proceed. So the first tip I'll be talking about today is going to be reduce the number of calculated columns you have in your data model. So sometimes when I see people building reports with Power BI, you get to see a whole lot of calculated columns in their model. fine, it works, it gives them their result, but at the same time, in terms of performance, are trying to optimize the data model, it's more advisable that you reduce the number of calculated columns you have and make use of more measures in your model. And the reason for this is not far-fetched. When you look at comparing a measure and a calculated column in Power BI, there's a lot of contrast between them, which I'll quickly run us through. So the first thing about measures, measures normally, they don't belong to a particular table. So it's not like when you create a measure, you see its holding value in a table. It only executes when you apply it into a visual. Also, the operations of measures works on aggregation of data, which is defined by your current context. So it's not static. It's not like your calculated column that doesn't change, that once you evaluate, it gives a value and it saves it in that column until the next data refresh happens. But for DAX measures, they are dynamic. They execute based on your current context. So when you use the same measure in two different contexts, you get to see two different results based on the particular context and the form of aggregation you have implemented within that measure. Now, the next thing about measures, measures don't consume space in memory. They only evaluate when you reference them or when you call them within a measure or within a visual. But on the other hand, when you talk about calculated columns, they are context defined such that the DAX expression you use to create those columns, they execute and evaluate row by row within the entire table data set. The value is recalculated upon every data refresh and it stores the results into your data model. So the more data, the more calculated columns you have in your model, the more space they take in the model and the bigger the model size. But when you have more measures, those measures, they don't take up space. They only execute when you put them into a visual or into another measure and give you a result. So they don't take space in memory, they don't take space in the data model. So these are just a few reasons why it's more advisable that when you're working with Power BI, try as much as possible to have more measures in your model than you have for calculated columns. Okay, let me move to the second tip. Yeah, so the second tip is talking about using variables. So sometimes when you're working within your model, you get to have maybe a particular formula that you need to reuse over and over again. So it's a smarter way to design your model such that you create a variable to hold the values of this your expressions, such that when you use it in the first instance, you can reuse it again in another measure in another scenario within that same model. You don't have to recalculate, and the Power BI model doesn't have to reevaluate going through all your data sets. So once it calculates at the first instance, it saves the results into a variable. And when you're trying to work with variables, there are two things you need to know. You need to define your variable, just like you do in a regular programming language. You use the var keyword to initiate the variable name. So you have the var in keyword followed by the variable name, then the expression for that variable. What's the variable supposed to evaluate? What DAX context is it supposed to evaluate? So you put that on the right hand side of your variable declaration. And when you are done with that, for you to now use the result of the variable, you have to return that variable. So that's just what is being done in the second line here. So next tip here is talking about always use the divide function to perform a division. So normally in Power BI, when you're working with DAX, you have two options. You either just create your measures or your evaluations using the divide function, which is one of the functions you have in DAX, or you just go straight forward to use the divide operator, which is the backslash. But there's a constraint working with just the backslash. In a situation whereby your denominator is like a zero value, using the divisor function would help you to allow 0 divisor, which is for the denominator. So in a situation whereby I want to divide 5 divided by 0, when I use the divide function, I can tell it that, oh, in a situation whereby the denominator is 0, the alternate result should give me maybe 0, or it should give me another expression. Whereas when I'm working with the division operator, dividing by 0 is always going to return an error. So when you use that measure in your table visual, it will give you error. So my next tip here is formatting your DAX code. So sometimes it's always very good to format DAX code, especially when you're working with quite a number of lines of code in your model. In a situation whereby the lines of code has grown so much, for easy readability and understanding of what you have done, it's advisable that you always format your code. So all thanks to SQL BI, they've come up with a website, that's daxformatter.com, that it's a free tool from them that you can always use to format your DAX codes. So when you write the codes in either your tabular editor or in your Power BI desktop model, you can always copy it, go to this website, paste the code and format it, then copy out the formatted version and replace in your Power BI model. So the next very vital tip here is it's always advisable that your data model should always have a date table. So sometimes when you have a model without a date table, it restricts the kind of analysis you are able to perform. Sometimes you want to do, okay, what is my sales this same period last year? But because you don't have a date table in your model, you can't do such time intelligence analysis. So certain functions in DAX, you are restricted to use them. Functions like year to date, month to date, same period last year, and such DAX functions that helps you to do time intelligence. You are not able to really use them because you don't have a date dimension, a date table in your model. So you can either create your date table with some DAX using like what we have here, using the calendar function, which takes 2 parameters, which is your start date and the end date. So usually best practice is you either use the start date, which is probably the minimum date you have in your data model, and your end date should be today. So in the end date part of it, you could use the today function. So as your model grows, as time goes over time, the calendar table expands. The values keep generating using the today function as the end date. Alternatively, you could also decide to create your date model, date table from Power Query using the M code. So there are 2 approaches. Either you use DAX, which is data analysis expressions, or use the M code, which is the language used by Power Query part of Power BI. So it depends on your choice on how well you have mastered both languages. So another beautiful thing about having the date table in your model is it allows you to establish a relationship between the date table and your transactional data sets in your model. So if you have a sales table, you have an orders table, and they have date fields in them, you can easily create a relationship between these tables and your date model. And all your reporting can then centralize from the fields coming from the date table. So you don't have to pick fields from each of the transactional tables or the facts tables in your model. You only work with the calendar table or the date table, depending on how you have named it. Also, having the date table in our model helps to ensure that you are able to drill down on other levels of the calendar hierarchy. So let's assume I have a transactional data. I want to see, okay, what's my trend on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis. Using my date dimension, I can easily do that trend. I can see, oh, this quarter this year, this quarter last year. I can do all those kind of analysis. Okay, so for the demo, I will just show us a small sample data set. It's a financial data set from Microsoft. It's available online to download. So it's a small data set that shows sales of some products across some segments. And the idea for us now is we want to see how can we create a measure that is going to show us the gross profit margin. And this gross profit margin is going to help us to see the difference between the net sales and the cost of goods sold. Now we divide this result by our net sales. Okay, so let's go into Power BI and see how we can achieve this. Let me launch my Power BI desktop. Okay, so here we go. So because of our time, I've brought in the data sets. I'll just walk us through the fields in this data set now. So the data is financials. Okay, beautiful. So we can see the segments, we can see the countries, we can see the products, we can see discounts, the unit of each product sold, the manufacturing price, the sales price, the gross sales, discounts on the sales amount, the cost of goods sold, and profits. Also the dates and months, name, and the year. So the idea for us is we want to see the gross profit margin for each segment. So we need to consider a number of things we have to have in place. First thing, we need the net sales. We need the cost of goods sold. So let's come back to our data sets. Net sales is going to be the difference between the selling price, that's the sales price here, times the quantity. So the number of units minus the discount on each sale. So we are looking at creating a measure that is going to multiply these two fields, units sold, sales price, then deduct the discount on each sale to give us the net sales for that particular product. So let's quickly see how we can do this. So we come to our table. You right click on the table name. So we create a new measure. So we want to call this net sales. So Ctrl Shift Enter. So we are looking at the sales amounts, sales price, sorry. So the first thing we have to do is sum on the table. So financials is our table. So let me just format my code as we do this. So on what expression now? I want to do price, sales price multiplied by the units sold. And I want to take away the discounts. Enter. Okay, that's beautiful. So this same thing I've done as a measure, I could decide to do it as a column. So let's also do that. So we come here, we are creating a column now, a calculated column. So I'll call this net sales calculated column. X. Let's do the sum. times the unit sold deduct the discounts. So let me just create a table visual so we can visualize the measures and the calculated column. So I want to bring in the segments. At the same time, I want to bring in my net sales. So this is the measure. This is my calculated column. Okay, let me make this bigger. So here we can see we got the same results, but in terms of performance, like I said earlier, it's always advisable to work with a measure, because right now, if you come to the table, you would see an extra column that has been created, and this is taking up memory. It's taking up space in our memory. So the more of this kind of table columns are created within the model, the bigger the model size grows, and it affects performance. So the next thing we'll look at now is, let's go back to our scenario. We've created net sales. So what's pending now is to see how we can create the gross profit margin measure. So going back to Power BI, back to the reports, we want to create another measure. So we want to call this gross profit. Now we want to use variables. So let's see how we can work with variables. Remember, the first thing we need to do is use the var keyword. So what do we want to call this variable? We want to call it net sales. So I'll call this total net sales. So here now I can reuse my measure, the net sales measure I created earlier. So I'll just reference it, net sales. Go to the next line. I also want to create a variable for my total cost of sales of goods sold. So here now I currently don't have a measure, so I could just easily do a sum of that column. Then one more thing I need to create is the variable for gross profit margin. So I'll call this gross profit margin. Need to be equal to my total net sales measure variable minus total cost of goods sold. So now I want to do the return expression. So here I want to return an evaluation of gross profit margin divided by total net sales. So let's see what this gives us. So, okay, I already have that, sorry. So I have to call this 2. I already have one I created earlier. Let me just do this as percentage. Perfect. Okay, so that's great. So one more thing I need to do, I need to change it to percentage formatting. Now I can use this measure in my table. Okay, beautiful. So here we can see the gross profit margin in percentage. So let's go through the code, what we have done. So I created a variable called total net sales, which is referencing my other measure, which is my net sales measure. I also created a variable called the total cost of goods sold, summing up the cost of goods sold column in the financials data set. And finally, I created another variable called gross profit margin, which helps me to see the difference between my total net sales and the total cost of goods sold. Then on the return part of my measure, I'm trying to now divide the gross profit margin by my total net sales. But remember, best practice, it's always advisable you don't use the divide operator, rather use the divide function. So let's just implement that. So come to the front of its place and do divide. The numerator is going to remain my gross profit margin, and my denominator is going to be my total net sales variable. Now for my alternate result, it says save divide function with ability to undo divide by 0 case. So in a situation whereby my total sales happens to be 0, what do I want to return as the gross profit percentage? So I'll say let's say return 0 as well. And I close my brackets, and I can apply these changes. So this way it makes the code more optimized and more efficient. So in a situation whereby maybe for a particular segment, the division is returning 0, the sum of total net sales for that segment is 0. Instead of throwing up error for the profit margin, it would tell us, oh, the profit margin is 0 because we have defined the alternate result here to be 0. So quick one, if you look at this measure here, this is another version of the gross profit measure. So let's evaluate it and see the result it gives us. Let me use it in the charts. Okay, beautiful. So I guess we can see this. We have the same results, just like what we had using the other measure. But if you look at this measure is very clean. It's easy to read, to understand, and it's very user-friendly to the eye, unlike what we have here. So here is just a module code that is not formatted. So I want to see how we can use the DAX formatter portal to format this code and eventually apply it in the Power BI model we currently have. So what I just have to do is I need to copy this query, copy, C. Then I come back to my browser, open a new tab. Then I go to DAX formatter. So I can just do a Google search. So you can see DAX formatter by SQL BI. Okay, so here is the portal. So it tells you, make your DAX code easy to read. Paste your formula here and try. So I have copied my code, I can paste. So originally this is what I have written in Power BI, which is not formatted. So when I click on formats, the engine evaluates my query and formats it, applying certain conditions that have been defined within the system. So you can see now that it's more readable and more user-friendly to the eye. So once it is done, you can easily copy. Then you come back to Power BI desktop and replace the code. So here now we have a very clean code. We can easily understand what was done and what is happening within the lines of code we have. So here we can see that the divide function was used. And here we are doing a division of two things. First is the difference between the sum of this part. So this is a part of the code which is synonymous. Okay, this part actually is synonymous to our net sold measure. Net sales measure rather. So it's telling us is evaluating the unit sold multiplied by the sales price, and it's subtracting the discounts. At the same time, now it's deducting the cost of goods sold from the result from this SUMX operation. So SUMX is a function in DAX that helps to, it's an iterative function that helps to iterate over the entire rows you have in a particular table. So those are some basic functions that you definitely come across when you're working with DAX in Power BI. So it helps you to run an aggregation across iteratively over a table, applying the same condition across all the records in that table. So what this code is doing is very synonymous to what we have in our other measure here. So let's look at it. Here we have net sales as total net sales, but remember we defined total net sales here as SUMX multiplying the price by this quantity, that's the unit sold, and subtracting the discounts from our results. So that's exactly what has been done here. Then we subtract the cost of goods sold, which is what I did here using a variable total cost of goods sold. Then I also created another variable to help subtract these two values before we now do the division. So one more thing, tip 5 is talking about creating a date table in our model. So as we can see right here, there is no table for dates in the model. We only have a single table. So how do we bring in a date table into our model? Going by DAX, we can easily come to modeling and come to the option to create a new table, which says write a DAX expression to create a new table. So I want to call this table dates. So there are a number of functions you could use, but I'll be going with the calendar function. So it's requesting for two parameters, which is my start date and my end date. Start dates, I would like to use the minimum dates in my financial table. So I'll reference the table, then go to the date column. So there's a column called dates, which is this. So I'm picking the minimum date there, that's like the most recent date, or the oldest date rather, in that table to be the start date of my calendar table. And my end date, I could decide to use either the maximum or use today. So if I use maximum, I come to financials and I pick dates. We can see now it has created a new table called dates in the model for me. So if I come to data view, I can view the table, view the content of this table. So from here now, I can see that the most recent date happens to be, the oldest date on this table happens to be the 1st of September 2013. And to get my most recent date, I'll start descending. I can see it's the 1st of December 2014. So I have about 457 distinct dates in this table. However, if I make a change to my code and say I want the end date to be today. So I'm using another function here now called today. So we can see that the date has changed to today's date, which is 24th of July. So using the advantage of using today is when it gets to tomorrow, when you open the same model, you get to see tomorrow's date here in the model, in the dates table already. So you don't have to necessarily always come back to edit your model or edit the DAX command for the table. So it's advisable you always use the today function as the end date. That way, it saves you the stress of having to come back to modify your model and maybe having to republish the report for users to see latest period. So something I also want to show us is how do we now create a relationship? Now we now have two tables within our model. We have the dates table, which we've created from using DAX, and our financials table, which is our transactional table. So we want to create a relationship such that we can use values or attributes from the dates dimension to filter out records in our financial table. So first thing first, we create a relationship here. You select the column and drag it on top of the other field on the other table. Then Power BI automatically creates. Oh, I didn't do that, sorry. Okay, so it has done it. So we can see it's created a one-to-many relationship between the dates table and the financials table. This is because records on the dates table should always be unique. So we should not have an occurrence of the same dates appearing more than once in the dates dimension table. So ideally, if that happens, then to be a serious problem within the model, you should always have unique records in your dimensional data, which is the master data set. But in the transaction, the financials is expected to have many legs, because of course in one day there could be multiple transactions in a particular day, so that's allowed. So we can see that it has created a one-to-many relationship. So let me edit the relationship so we can see. So it created relationship from the financials table on this date field to the date column in my dates dimension. So I can just close this. So one more thing we also need to do now is on the date dimension, we need to expand on this. We need to bring in the month name, do some additional formatting, get the quarter name, the quarter number, and whatever attributes of the calendar that we actually need to use to do analysis on our reports. But before I go there, let's just do a quick one. Now I want to create a slicer. So I come to the visualizations pane and I select my slicer. Just make it a bit smaller. Then maybe I should make this bigger. Values. Okay. So on my slicer, I want to bring in the date from my dimension. So the idea now is with this, I can be able to drill down and slice my data here based on selected dates. So as I move it, I expect it to recalculate and show me results. So reason why this is so is because I'm looking at a date probably that does not have data. So let me just look at the range of data I have in my model. So the year happens to be between 2013 and 2014. Okay, beautiful. So if I come back and do a filter and I choose 2013, 1st of August. Okay, so now I can see results. If I reduce this to 2014, yeah, so we can see the values keep changing as I drill down, as I filter based on the quarter. So another interesting thing we can actually do here is we can come back here and create an hierarchy using the dates. So I've created a date hierarchy. So if I want to add values to this hierarchy, all I need to do is come back to my data model, come to the dates table, and create new columns to this table that I've created for my date. You remember the dates column, the table is a singular table, is a singular column table, just having the date, but I need some other attributes. So right now I want to right click on the dates table and add a new column. So if I want to do quarter, say equals to quarter. Then I use the date column in my date table. So if I want to create for months, I do the same thing, new column. Do months. However, I would like to rename this. Let me call it month number. And this, I want to call this quarter number. Then if I want to bring in the names, it's a special formatting for that. So quarter name. Format the dates. Dates. So I want to do month name. Oh, sorry. Quarter. So for so here I'll do formats, date column. I want to format it as months. So I can see the month name. Okay, it's in this quarter name. No, something's not right. So if I come back to my hierarchy, I can now add attributes. So I can then say month name, I right click on it and add to the hierarchy. So coming back to the visual, I can just create another slicer for month name. So with this, I can filter on monthly basis. So we can see the differences on a monthly basis as we drill down. And when you select multiple months, you get to see the values as well. So the next thing I want to quickly look at now is how to tidy up our visuals. So here I want to clean up, remove the one that is this. I'm taking this out, I'm taking out the calculated columns, and we only have the segments, the net sales amounts, and the gross profits, which is exactly what we wanted to achieve. So the idea was for us to get the gross profit margin, which is dividing the net sales and the difference between the net sales and the cost of goods sold divided by the net sales. which we currently have here. So I guess this brings me to the end of my presentation.
Hi, Bami. That was a wonderful presentation, really well structured. I'm sure lots of people enjoy it. We have got a few minutes for questions, and if anybody wants to put questions in the chat, that's great. A question that came up a couple of times was the difference between sum and SumX. I know you've kind of explained it, but maybe if you talk a bit more about that, and maybe the difference between aggregator and iterator functions as well, and why we would need to use SumX when we've got sum. Would that be okay?
All right, good. Yeah, I'm going to the chat. So like I said earlier, SumX and SumX do quite similar things. They help us to run a sum on our data sets. But the idea behind functions that have the X behind their names they are iterative expressions, in the sense that they run those aggregations on the entire data set based on what you have modeled. So if you look at what we had here, let me come back to my formula for net sales. I told it to run a SumX on the financials table. So SumX will always require that, oh, what table am I evaluating your expression on? So you provide the table name and the expression that it will run, the aggregation expression it will run. Whereas for sum doesn't require the table name, it just requires what field you are summing against. So SumX is more explicit around running iteration against an entire table. So you must specify the table name and also the expression to evaluate. So it could be an expression that is actually referencing different tables, depending on how complex you're trying to run your analysis. So it's not necessarily running the sum against fields in one table. It could run the sum against an aggregation function that is actually summing or multiplying columns from two different tables. So that's the idea of using SumX. But when you're using a sum function, it has to be particularly on that table. So you can't sum two columns from, or sum a function that is multiplying two columns from two different tables using the sum function. You will always have to use the SumX function. I don't know if that answers the question right, Naresh. Any other questions?
So thanks, Naresh. I hope that answers your question. That's good. I'll just ask you a supplementary question if I can, Ibami. You talked about how SumX is more flexible than sum because you can have an expression, whereas sum just takes a column. And you also mentioned that SumX can take different tables. Maybe you want to talk a bit about the related function that allows SumX to do that.
Okay, beautiful. So for you to use SumX, you have to have a relationship created between the two tables you're trying to run this SumX function against. So if I come to my model, anyways, I only have one table, but let's assume within the model I had like two different tables that have values I want to do an analysis of a sum. I want to do a multiplication of two columns from two different tables. First thing I need to do is establish a relationship between these two tables. So once I have the relationship created, I can then come back to my model view here, or my formula bar, and say I want to use related. So there's a function called related. So let me just assume. So that tells you what column are you trying to reference from this table, this particular table where you are running this SumX function against. So it will only see columns from tables that are related. So now you can see it's only seeing columns from the dates table, because currently in this model I only have my dates table having a relationship to this financials table. But if I have a second table or a third table that has a relationship, it will also come up here and I'll be able to reference columns from them and use within my SumX function. So it has to do with how you have built your model and the relationships you have established between the queries or the tables you have in the model.
That was brilliant explanation. Thank you very much indeed. Let's just ask in the chat window any other questions. Let me just have a quick look. There's one come up. Let's see. Oops, wrong one. Go back to that. Great, lots of compliments on a wonderful talk there in the chat window. So Ayobami, thank you very much indeed. That was fantastic talk, and very well explained, very clearly explained, and really well structured. Really good, useful DAX stuff there. What I'm going to do is give people a quick 5-minute break to stretch their legs, rest their eyes,
Thank you for your
and
time. Thank you, everybody, for your attention.
thank you. And next up is Mohammed Adnan. Mo, do you want to just give a quick sneak peek at for a minute? Tell us what you're going to be talking about on the hour at 2 p.m. GMT.
Yes. Hi, Mark.
Hiya.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yes. Hope everybody is hearing me.
We can hear you very well.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about Power BI tips and tricks. Do I need to share the screen now itself, or it has to be on 2 p.m.? Mark, is the question. Can I share the screen
yes,
now
I'm
itself?
having difficulty muting himself. No need to share the screen now. You're on exactly in 10 minutes on the hour, and we look forward, and you can tell us all your secrets then. And we'll give people a 10-minute break. I don't know about you, but I've been sitting here for a few hours and I need to stretch for 10 minutes. So
sure.
And then we'll come back more refreshed for your talk. So, but just tell us the tips and tricks. Are these visualization tips, DAX tips we've just had? Are they to do with data import? Or give us a brief.
It's a kind of visualization tips mostly.
Good.
And one part is for Power Query, how we can rename the columns.
Good.
And other things, everything involves for the visualization purpose itself. So there are almost 5 tips I'm going to share. One is how you can avoid the base level filter. And other thing is how you can apply multiple values and then apply a drill through.
That sounds that. Go ahead.
And the next thing is how you can sort the axis by group, by category in x-axis in a visual, and how you can apply a partial drill through in Power BI.
Those sound absolutely wonderful, things I don't know myself. So we look forward to seeing you in 8 minutes time. If anybody wants to take a break, and we'll be starting again exactly at 2 p.m. GMT.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mo.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are just about to start the next session, which is Mohammed Adnan, and he's going to be talking about lots of Power BI visualization tips. So, Mo, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself and start sharing your screen? It's nearly 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock GMT.
Yeah, sure.
Lovely. Fantastic. We can see your screen. Good. And
Right.
yes, there you are as well. Lovely.
Yeah.
It's 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock exactly GMT. And Mo, the floor is yours for the next half hour.
Thank you, Mark, for this opportunity. So, hi everyone. And before to begin, it's a special thanks to the organizer and the attenders for coming up to this session. And a little bit of introduction about myself. So I have 15 plus of experience in Microsoft technologies, working my career starting from the Excel itself. Everybody uses Excel in this world. And when it comes to the industry experience, I have working experience with manufacturing sector, import and export, supply chain, construction, and workforce management. I have 5 plus years of experience in Power BI, and I have my own YouTube channel as well, which is named as Tech 18, which consists of 350 plus videos, almost 40 plus hours of content in that. Mostly I covered topics related to Power BI, and recently I started covering topics for other Power apps and Power Platform. I am a Microsoft certified trainer and also data analyst associate. So you can reach me out to LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram or Facebook using my name here. And this is a logo of my YouTube channel. So if you want to find in YouTube, this Tech 18, you can find out this channel. And here's the website of mine. So if you want to check it out, our consulting services, you can just go through this website. Right. So coming to the next topic. So what are the things which we are going to cover today in this session? The first thing is quickly rename columns in Power Query. And the next thing is how to avoid the page level page level filter. And the third one is how to can select multiple value and apply a drill through. And the fourth is how you can group by category in x-axis. And the last thing is how to apply a partial drill through. So there are few cases which I come up during this Power BI 5 years of experience. So I want to share those things with you people as well. So now let's move on to the demo. The first thing I want to open up a dashboard, which is built in Power BI desktop. Okay. So you can see the Power BI desktop as well, right?
Yes.
Thank you. So as you can see, this is an AdventureWorks sales analysis dashboard. So now the thing is the first option, how you can quickly rename the columns in Power Query. So let me go to this transform data. So these are the tables which I have. And if you look at these columns here, let me zoom this. Okay. So the name of the columns is geographic key, city, state, province code, state, province name, and country region code. These are the things are here without any space. So what will happen is if you are publishing this report to the self-service BI people, it will be find difficult for them in order to understand what the exact column name is. That's one thing. And another thing is if you're going to use the AI visuals like Q&A visuals or smart narrative and even quick insight, it is going to extract the information, whatever the columns name you have, whatever the data you have into it, right? So the outcome from that visuals will not be as much as we are expecting, because the column names, everything, it is going to fetch from the table itself. So it is best practice in order to rename all those columns. So I have come up with a solution for this one. So we can discuss that. So the situation is, actually, I worked in a project where there is a fact table which consists of almost 100 plus tables in that. So even the column names is as per the database structure, it is not as good as the business friendly name. So it is really difficult and painful if you want to go and change the column one by one, right? In order to do that, we have one way. So what you can do is, I'm just right clicking this dim category. I'm in geography for an example. Let me zoom this a bit. You can see the zoom window, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this dim geography table, I'm just taking as a reference. So taking a reference table will just replicate from here. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go to this one option from the top menu is keep rows. So I want to keep only the top one row. So there is an pop-up box here. So I want to keep top one rows and click OK. So it will delete all the rows here and it will just keep only the top one rows. So now what I will do, I'll just click on this one and copy entire table. Moving out. The next thing is I would like to go to Excel. This is too much. Okay. So I'm switching it back again to Power Query. So first of all, what I will do, I will just rename one or two columns manually. Like I want to change the geography key to space with geography key, and then the state province code with a space here. Just only two columns I'm going to change by myself manually, and copy this entire table. Excel file. So you need to have a little bit of Excel knowledge in order to apply this logic actually. Nowadays, everybody is aware of Excel, so I believe. So I'm copying this first column and pasting it here. Here, right click, and then paste special values. So I'm not going to directly paste here. So I'm going to click on paste special values or transpose. Better I want it to be transpose because I want all the columns to be in a row. So now I have all the columns in row. I just want to change this one back. Now by doing this, anybody from the business may aware of the exact business name for this one, right? So you can share this Excel file to them and ask them to give a correct exact business friendly name in this Excel sheet itself. For an example, in this case, I'm doing it myself. Quickly rename all the columns. Good. Just an example purpose. So forgot about the English name and Spanish name. I just want to have multiple columns, so I kept these columns here. Basically these three, and this is refers to the table. So I'm deleting this. Okay, now what you can do, let's go back to Power Query and clicking on the advanced editor of this table, reference table. And let's copy the last step actually. The rename column which is there, I want to copy that. Cancel. And going back to Power Excel, paste it here. Okay, so now you can see how this has named the columns. So table name, rename column name, and then the first row, that is a step, and the original column name and rename column name, original column name and rename column name, right? So what we can do, we can just split this into a different multiple rows. First, I want to add up here till this step, and then I want to add double brackets, which is there here in the formula, and I want to add the double quotes as well. And after that, we need to have this geography key, that is a base column, we have it here. And after that, we have double quote, comma, double quote. So we have it here. And after that, we have this column, geography key. And after that, we need to add one more double quote, and this is curly brackets. So this is this step, and also I need to add one comma here. So by looking at this formula, basically this is looks good. So what I will do, I will just add one more curly bracket here and remove it from here. Okay, now everything looks good. So what I will do, I'll just click equal to, and I will add this curly bracket and adding the first one, and then adding to this one, and symbol adding to this column and to this. By doing this, if you look at this one, curly brackets open, double quote, geographic key, and then double quotes, comma, double quotes, geographic key, double quotes, curly bracket, and comma. So we got the same exact result as we expected, right? So what we can do, we will just copy this and paste all the cells, all the columns, rows which we have. So this is until to this stage. Now, if you look at the formula, what it has written at the last, so only we need to change at the last step is we need to add one more curly bracket and one more regular bracket. Okay, so here we have all the columns with renamed one, and I will just cut and paste it here. Now, if we just examine these changes, I think, yeah, everything looks good. So now I can copy this one entirely and go to this Power Query and go to this advanced editor. I'll just comment this step and add a new line and paste whatever I have done in Excel. I just copy and paste it here and click done. So now you can see all the columns has been renamed. So imagine if you have like this one, if you have 100 plus columns in a table, and if you want to rename everything, it will take almost half an hour job for you. But by doing this, it takes around 5 to 10 minutes of job for you. So this is the one step. If you have any queries for this step, please let me know. I will pause for a second to hear the feedback. All right, hearing none. So I want to switch it to the next one, basically. So it is how to avoid page level filter. Okay, so this is also one of the cases which I found. Like for an example, so after making all these changes, for you need to delete this step actually. So not required for me. Okay, so the next thing is how to avoid page level filter, right? So basically, if you look at this one in this dashboard itself, I have added a filter on this page. That is, the year filter is applied to 2011, 12, 13, and 14, and that has an effect. Let me zoom this. So year filter is applied to 2011, 12, 13, and 14, and that has an effect here on the slicer. Not only on the slicer, it's everything, every visuals on the page, right? So if you want to avoid that in a particular visual, for an example, let's take an example of this card itself. So I have this card, the sales of related to 2012. Now a requirement is we need all the sales throughout the year from where we have the data, for an example. So in that case, we can use edit interaction. That's one thing. So I'm going to this format and edit interaction, and selecting this is slicer. We can just turn off this one. If you do so, it will bring up all the values throughout the year or data, whatever we have. But it depends on this one, basically, the value which is available on the page level filter. So if I'm going to add one more year here, for example, I think there is no data here. Let's assume I have filtered the date records to 2012. Okay, now we have 22 millions of sales. And if I want to add one more year in the page level security, I can add that. But the requirement is it should not have to affect all the visuals, right? In order to do that, you can do a workaround. I need to add one more visual of the year. I'm just going to copy this year slicer. And paste it here on anywhere on the page. And I'm going to clear all the selections from this one, the page level filter. And also I'm going to clear all the selection from the newly created slicer. So now you can see I have this one 6 million and 29 millions of sales here. And also if you look at this one, I can see all the values on this slicer, but this should not be the case. All the visuals from this page have to show only 2012, 13, and 14. But only for this card visual, it has to show all the value, all the years of value. So in that case, what we can do, I can just add this slicer and go to format again on edit interaction. So it has to enable for all the visuals on the page and just disable for this visual. Right? By doing that, what will happen is I will tell you now. So remove this edit interaction and open this slicer. Sorry, clear this one. Open this slicer and you just need to select 2012, 13, and 14. Now we have data of only 2012, 13, and 14. And if you look at this main slicer, we have only 2012, 13, and 14. Right. Okay. Now what I will do, I can just open the view and selection pane. Rename this as master slicer. Page level slicer for year. And I want to hide this one. Now, if you look at this, this looks as it was looking before, but the filter is not here. Page level filter is not here. And even though the value shows 2012, 13, and 14, and if I select any of the values from this slicer, it is going to affect all the visuals except this one. So this is the one way. So you can avoid the page level filter by adding one more slicer into the page and doing all the stuff and hiding that slicer. using the selection pane. And it involves the edit interaction as well. That's the main key. This is the step number 2. And let's move on to, before moving to the next one, I want to pause again for a while. If you have any questions for this one.
I think Jack asked like if you can just share this rename column code in the Excel macro file and share with the audience. That would be great.
Yeah, sure. I will share you after this meeting. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So the next thing is select multiple value and apply drill through. So basically it's usual one. So how you can create a drill through, I will come on the next step. So I'm going to cover this one first, group by category in x-axis. So for an example, I have this visual, the year and month. I'm going to copy this and add it on a new page. Pasting it here. Now I can see all the years of the data here and as well as the month. Now the requirement comes is if I want to change the year in the x-axis itself. And now I can see the year first. And if I drill down to this one, it gives me like this of information, but this is not user-friendly readable. So what you can do is there are a couple of things which you need to consider. The first thing is you can go to this format tab and go to this x-axis, and here make sure it is categorical, but by default Power BI understands the data and it changes the type. And after that you need to turn off this one, concatenate label. So this option you need to turn off. So I'm going to turn off this one. Even after doing the turn off, it doesn't change this behavior of this visual, right? So the thing is, it has to sort it by ascending order and as well as by the x-axis value, not the value of the sales amount or the profit, whatever it is. Even though this is sorting ascending order and it is sorting by calendar year and sort month name, this is not sorting out, right? In that case, what you can do, you just need to switch this connection one time, ascending order by sales amount, and switch it again to calendar year. See, it gives the result as expected. So now the x-axis is grouped by year and as well as month here. So you can see this is 2020 December alone, we have the data, and sorry, 2010, and this is 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014 as well. So this is another thing. And the next thing is how we can select multiple value and apply drill through. So here basically, let's go back to the first page. Okay, so I have created a drill through page basically by in this report. So if you want to drill down to anything, you can just right click this one, and so you can also mouse over to this drill through, and we can go on to the drill through page. So this is the kind of drill through page, right? So actually, if you want to give a multiple selection, like for example, if I'm going to need those customers by age, I'm going to filter the age by 31st to 40, as well as those who are coming from a long while, like they are coming from more than 5 miles. So if you just press Control on the keyboard and click it here, then it selects multiple values, not only on the different visuals, it can be on the same visual as well. So if you want to select these two, that's 2.5 and 5 to 10 miles, this gives the selection of these two values. And if you want to filter only for the male employees, male customers, I can click here by pressing the Control key on the keyboard. So I have these results here. Now, if you want to drill down further, you can drill down specific. For example, if I'm going to drill down here, So right click here. Now you can remove the control key. Right click here and drill through this page. This is going to apply all the selections, whatever you did on the first page, and it's going to apply all the selections and apply it here. So if you look at this one on the visualization pane, these are the things which is selected here, bikes and North America, but the data is already filtered to whatever selection we did. Okay, and the next thing is how to apply partial drill through. Okay, so for this example, I want to create a page. I'm going to take it up from any of this sheet. Okay, let's take an example of this one. Okay. Copying this and adding a new page, pasting this visual. Now I have here the territory, the list of product category and the values here, sales amount. If you want to drill through, then you need to add a field here in this page on the visualization pane. So I'm going to select this product category, English product category, and drag and drop onto this drill through page. So this is fine. So I can drill through here. Now if I rename this sheet to demo. Okay, now going to the sales amount page, product category. So this is visual has a product category and I want to be filtered by bikes. So right click here and drill through to demo page. So this is Europe, and if you can see here, the first visual it shows here is the Europe and this is bike. So if I right click here and drill through to demo, so it filters the data to bikes and as well as to the territory Europe. Right now, the question again comes here is, for example, if I click on the bikes here, and you can see the value of this Europe bikes is 19 lakhs. In that case, if you just go back to demo here, it also shows the value of 19 lakhs here. The reason is this year is filtered here in this one. And also if you look at here in the demo, and go to this one, visualization pane, the calendar is also filtered here. And whatever we have applied restriction, everything is applied here. So that's the reason data is filtered here. Now the requirement from the business is, for example, they want to show complete year here, whether it is 2012 or 2013. You should not have to restrict the data, whatever is in the first page, but it has to show everything on the partial filter. So in that case, I'm going to add year on this column, for example. So now this is year I have, and also I have this territory. So going back again, before going back, I want to clear everything from here. So clear everything. I want to remove everything. I just want to keep only the English product category. So now you can see you have the calendar here, as well as the territory. So if you want to avoid that partial drill through, what you can do is you need to just turn off this one. The keep all filters is their option is the right. So you need to turn off this one, keep all filters, and go to this sales tab. Click on the same thing, Europe bikes, and this is the value 19 lakhs. So if I right click here again and drill through demo, this is filtered to 2012 So now you can see it is bring up all the data here for all the years, whatever we have the data. So 2010, 12, 11, and 13. And the value which was expecting is for Europe, right? So it is filtered here. So you can see the Europe, it is filtered only for the bikes because we have added on the drill through only the product category. If we have added the territory, for an example, so I'm going to add the territory as well here in the drill through, and let's go back again. So whatever the fields which we want to filter, we can add those filters into that drill through section. And if I right click again here, drill through and demo, it will give me the data of Europe bikes, but for all the years. Even though the first page is filtered to 2012, but here it is not restricting. The reason is because we have disabled these keep all filters selections. So this is how you can able to partially drill through from one page to another page. Okay. So I didn't expect that I finished this off very quickly. I'm pausing a bit. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Hi, that was wonderful. We can ask the audience to raise some question through the chat window.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have an announcement to make. I will make an announcement in a bit.
Yeah.
I think everybody loves this session. So one of the question is from Atif is like, what is the advantage of removing page level filter and putting it into a hidden slasher instead?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. So let me go through this. Okay. So the thing is, if you apply a page level filter, then it is going to apply in all the visuals in the page, right? But the business requirement is we want to show the sales of throughout the year from when we have started the business, only for a particular visual. And for other visuals, it can be applied to whatever the page level filter we had earlier, it can apply to all the visuals. That's the kind of strange requirement which I got from business very recently actually. So we need to apply this logic in order to avoid that, and they're happy with this solution actually.
Yeah, wonderful. Like you have the scenario where you have different products coming up and you want to show only the specific start date where you actually want to compare them with the targets. So this is a business use case requirement we can get.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions you have? You want to show some more tricks? You have some around 20-30 minutes. You can avail this time and show some more cool stuff.
What else I can show up here?
Recordings will be available online on the YouTube channel, but it will take some time, around 3-4 weeks, to get all the recordings uploaded. I have put the YouTube link here in the chat window as well. I have a small announcement to make, and this is related to the community and the community work we are doing. So I would first like to thank all our speakers to coming up here, turning up and providing amazing sessions and sharing the knowledge with the community. Also, we would like to remind that please be aware that you need to respect your fellow members and you need to respect the speakers here as well, providing they have been doing this as a voluntary task. So we have seen some of the comments which are, you could say, in no manner with respect to the community guidelines. So that's why we remind you that please be respectful to the community members, fellow speakers, and organizers. We would like to thank our speakers to take their time out and provide their insightful knowledge into the product. Thank you. Our next session will be starting from 30 minutes from now. It would be by Mark. It would be from Mark Felix, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. So it would be from Miguel Felix. Think inside the box. I hope you guys are enjoying the sessions, and there is another room as well, advanced track, where you can join